Our friend Sean Salisbury joins us on the Bud Light guest line. Bud Light, easy to drink, easy to enjoy, as is always our conversations with Sean. And what do you know? Our cities are linked once again. Sean, who is based out of Houston, who has obviously hired DeMeco Ryans. What do you think about that hire for the Houston Texans? What advice would you give him coming back to Houston?
Advice, I don't think he needs much of it. I think, having been obviously a player here, it's rare that you hear the regard that this guy's held in across the country for people that just have watched him from a distance. Here, he's revered. They love him. Leadership-wise, as a leader, as a player, as a human being. And I think the two things that he has, from all indications, watching him as a coordinator, we know he knows X's and O's and how to call defenses, Damon, but it is two things. One is the building gets better. The guy, he raises people's game. Robert Saleh was great, but he also took that defense to another level, and he's done it back-to-back years and played and done phenomenal things with it. And the other thing, he leads. I'm a big believer that your assistants need to be great X's and O's guys. Now, if he's going to call the defenses, and we'll see, then he's got that too, but your head coach needs to be the best leader in the building. He just does. Well,
and it also feels like, Sean, it's a really good landing spot for him. Not only is it a homecoming of sorts because, going back to his playing days, but finally Houston has basically painted itself into a corner where patience on this hire is required. You cannot let another guy go early in his contract based on the fact you just did that with your last two coaching promotions, and you're in the tear it all down, build it all back up, needing a new quarterback in this draft department. It feels like DeMeco actually reaches Houston at a time where Houston can't return to its worst behaviors.
There's no question. And with him, like the buzz here has been big. It hasn't been this big since Watson first got to Houston. There's optimism now. I know they got a lot to do in the draft and the rest of it, but with him, and it's not even paint. I think this is the corner they wanted to paint themselves into. David Culley was not ready to be a head coach, even after all the years as an assistant. They knew that was a bridge coach. And in truth, so was Lovie Smith. Lovie Smith was not their first choice, their second choice, the third choice, but a stabilizing factor. But they didn't get better. And while I know optics and went 2 one-and-dones, it's been a dysfunctional franchise. What he does on a 6-year contract is he brings great reputation from the 49ers, a guy that's beloved here, but also that's damn good at his job, and the response they get is great. So he's got the traits necessary. Now you got to go get the players.
Is there a wild card, though, in the fact that I don't know how secure Nick Caserio is as the general manager there? And is there a danger in bringing in a new general manager who I presume might want to hire his own coach?
With the way the McNairs have gotten more involved, Cal McNair in this one, I think they're going to give a long leash to at least a couple more years to Nick Caserio. I do. I don't on the national focus. They're looking at the last two coaches and think, well, is he tied to this coach? Yes, he is, and the draft picks as well. But he's done a decent job in the draft with what he's had. The first year he got here, they didn't have a pick till the 3rd round, and that guy started for 2 years for the most part for him in Davis Mills. And then last year, from Pierce and Stingley and Petrie, and you're talking 6-7 guys started that are young guys, either first, more than that when you go first or second year guys. So he's done pretty decent with the draft with what he's had. Now this one is the catch-all. The quarterback, you got 2 picks in the first round, all the Watson assets. So I've got a little danger, Ray, but if DeMeco goes out for 3 straight years and they're 2-15, they'll both get fired. But as long as there's not some major hiccup and they win 6 games next year, Nick Caserio is not going anywhere. They're going to let him play this out at least for a couple years. And I also think that even if they brought a GM in, let's just say they got tired of Caserio after 1 more year, and they brought in a GM, that GM would not have they would not give him the power. This is a different organization and a little weird, but they would not give him the power to get rid of DeMeco Ryans. They're going to they're going to play this out. I would imagine a minimum of 3 years, regardless of the result, unless it's just so bad. Nick Caserio's job, at least for now, is not in danger. And even if a GM came in, that DeMeco Ryans will outlast Nick Caserio if that was the case.
Our friend Sean Salisbury on the Bud Light guest line here on Damon and Ratto. So it is shoulder surgery time for Brock Purdy. It's either going to be 6-month variety or, elbow surgery time. It's either going to be 6-month variety or shut him down because it's worse than that when they actually open him up and they get in there. What do you know, Sean, of quarterbacks returning from this similar injury along all of your playing days and coaching days?
Haven't seen many of them. Elbow strains, elbow soreness, some guys, but rare is it that I've seen, and I don't know how often it is. If it is, we don't see it much, is this Tommy John type surgery. Now, we've seen it just from here, Justin Verlander and Lance.
Sounded like we just got sniped from a cell phone tower, Ray.
I think he blew out his UCL.
He might have. Holding the receiver up, maybe his elbow, who knows?
Or maybe he was holding a drink.
Maybe it was Hassan Reddick just blowing him up. We didn't even know he was in the passenger seat, but there he is.
Or maybe even at Salisbury's house.
Tyler Croft missed another block and got Sean Salisbury blindsided.
I think that's probably what happened.
Do you think people are making way too much out of, well, you used the wrong player to block the wrong player, and that's why the whole game plan blew up?
That's always what people do because they know just enough to be stupid. I mean, Tyler Croft is probably a better blocker than George Kittle is at this point because they use Kittle in more patterns.
We no longer need to vamp. Our guest has returned. Sean Salisbury on the Bud Light guest line. Sean, you were right in the middle of an answer when you cut out, so let's wrap up with how rare it is, just in terms of your experience, to return from such an injury.
I've never been on a team that's had this with a quarterback other than, tightness from throwing during training camp. You throw a lot. But we've seen it with Verlander and McCullers and a lot of baseball stuff here in Houston. If it is that they're cutting him open, I mean, the baseball, football, the torque is pretty similar when it comes to it, the finish and the rest of it. If it's cutting open, it's serious. There's no way he's back in 6 months if you're just going by the history of baseball injuries. I mean, get it back into shape and strengthening it so your mechanics don't change. So let's assume, and I'd love to say for the best that they didn't need to do it because, like I said, it is rare, but he'll get the best doctors around. But if it is a year, now the step is what's next? Jimmy's not going to be there, as we heard John and Kyle say. And now you're out Brock Purdy for the year more than likely. Now what? Trey Lance coming back from injury. It's his chance now to grasp it and see where it goes. But I wouldn't imagine it's going to be anytime soon. I would prepare if I'm the 49ers like it's a year, and if it's a bonus and it's sooner, then you get a great bonus back for a guy who won 7 straight games for you.
Who's a guy on the market that you would want to bring in either as a wiser head third quarterback type or somebody who could either back up Lance if he's fine or has to take the job if Lance isn't?
Well, you know that Jimmy gone, you go through the names that would possibly be available or you could get. I think Winston's a free agent. I don't know. He's a turns the ball over, which would drive Kyle crazy, but he's got experience. If you want to get into the car business, but that's $40 million. That happened to compete, which I'm not sure Carr and Lance, they want to put them in that situation. So he's planning on going and being a starter. So you got to scramble around and look for a guy that, that gives you an opportunity. Jacoby Brissett, listen, I know Watson's there and he's the guy, but Brissett did a damn good job last year. He's a veteran. He's become a guy who protects the football pretty well. He doesn't try to beat out. He understands the situation. He's been in it, kind of like Bridgewater over his career. You keep replacing him with another higher draft pick, and players love him. He can run the football and do what Kyle does in his offense, and he's efficient enough in the short passing game of the guys, and it won't cost you $20, $30, $15, $18 million. He seems to be just off a short list in my head that a guy you could have that's reliable that would also be better on a better team.
It happened again.
He blew his arm out.
That's happened again.
Yeah. Tried to warm up again, and
Hassan Reddick again.
Even on a play that hadn't even started yet. That should be roughing the passer.
Offsides. I mean, at least reset down in distance here.
But he raised an interesting name though. Derek Carr. Maybe bring him in as a starter.
Well,
I don't know.
There's
I don't
a
know
price point that means he's your starter.
Well, yeah, sure. But I'm asking the question. He would be a surer thing than either Purdy or Lance.
If we can get one, because I would like to hear Sean's just thumbnail sketch of what he thinks the Super Bowl will be. That's what we'll come on back with if we can get him back online. But we'll let him go after that because he's hung up on us twice. He's had it with the Bud Light guest line.
Well, the other possibility is that his elbow's fine. He just throws the phone in the toilet.
Derek Carr. I used to say this about Derek Carr. He had every shot in the bag. He could put a little on. He could take a little off. He could be very good in the intermediary. I don't know. The only thing I really do not like about Derek Carr is that price point. I mean, if that is a price point, how about this? Would you rather have, Derek Carr as your starter for $40 million, or maybe try to salvage, I don't know, Baker Mayfield for much less than that?
Well, we have him back, so we can ask him.
Sean Salisbury, one more time around, and we'll just we lost you once again as you were saying Derek Carr could possibly be an answer, and after this we'll just get a quick thumbnail preview of the Super Bowl and what you think we got coming up between two very good quarterbacks in their own right, Patrick Mahomes and Jalen Hurts. Welcome back.
And you didn't hear me say Brissett?
No.
Jacoby.
No, he did.
Carr.
Okay.
We did hear Brissett.
Yeah, Brissett was because he's reliable. He's not a guy with a big ego. He doesn't. He would like to be a starter, but he's a backup. Think Teddy Bridgewater, same way, a guy who's been replaced a few times but can still handle it. I think Jacoby Brissett would be a reliable backup that is no threat to the long-term starting position, and will cost you a lot less. As far as the Super Bowl, listen, the most consistent team all year long has been Philadelphia. The 49ers, unfortunately, we didn't get to see a real matchup because of the quarterback thing that's been well documented, but they're filthy on defense. They're going to apply a lot of pressure. This will be one of the biggest tests for the offensive line and the protection for Pat Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. The thing I love about Andy Reid on the other side, there's no rhyme or reason or down or distance or place on the field that he won't do something that you haven't seen or catches you off guard. Big plays will matter in this game, but you're going to have to deal with a lot of schemes and guys who can pressure with 3-4 guys in Philadelphia. Keep an eye on the run game of the Kansas City Chiefs. Pacheco's physical. I love this game, and Jalen Hurts is a star. He is the star, but they're going to have to throw for more than 125 yards than they did last week. I love the game. I think it's a field goal game just on early returns. I like Philadelphia right now, but Mahomes is obviously the great equalizer, and you've got to find a way to double Kelsey and make somebody else beat you.
Is there anything about this game that you think will surprise you, or have we seen what Philadelphia does and what Kansas City does so many times that this is simply just a matter of who does what they do better than the other guy?
It's the latter, Ray. You'll see both of them will pull off something different in the game with 2 weeks, and they've got personnel. I mean, we've got stars, just like we did last week. And like I said, a shame we didn't have Purdy healthy, but stars all over the place. They'll do something different. The key to this game is twofold. Who's better at executing in the red zone? And both these teams can score in the red zone. Philadelphia scores on opening possessions as well. But I think it simply comes down to 6-8 plays, who turns it over, who yanks a punt, who gets that extra strip sack fumble at midfield. It's one of those games. I'm still leaning towards like the under. I don't think it's going to be 41-38 type game. I think it's going to be a little more physical, but I would keep an eye on a commitment to the run game, like I said, for Kansas City. And it's going to come down to execution. This isn't get cute, and they run trick plays to make them work. So it's going to be physicality, and if they can't contain Philadelphia's defensive front, you'll see a lot of pressure on Mahomes. The question is, will he be able to move? And I would imagine he'll be close to 100% after 2 weeks off. He seemed to be moving pretty well against Cincinnati.
Sean Salisbury on the Bud Light guest line. 3 phone calls for you today. You officially checked in. Thank you, brother. Appreciate it.
I appreciate you guys. Have a good one.
There he is. Sean Salisbury on 95.7 The Game.